Hello, boys and girls. We are going to talk about today history. We're going to, you have some pages that your mom or dad could print off from the class tag about history. And this goes along with your lesson that you're learning about in your textbooks and your heritage studies. And so I'm just going to go over some of the worksheets that you have in there, or your packet that you can put together, as well as how to do your timeline. So if you want to have those pages handy, or you can just watch this and then do it later. I'm also going to attach the pages with the answers on them for you to look at when you're putting your packets together, okay? And if you have any questions, you can always call me. So let's get right at it. I want to, first of all, give you some definitions. The first one is history. Events that took place in the past. Historian is a person who studies the past, who takes a look at things that happened a long time ago and makes sense of them for us, and writes books and does a lot of research. This is a research person, historian. You like history, you could be a historian. The past. What has already taken place? The past has already happened. We know that we've been looking at Christopher Columbus and the exploration and the explorers that have come here to discover America and to discover new lands. The past. Those are things that have happened in the past. The present is what is taking place right now. Right now, today, is called the present. A timeline is a diagram that shows the order of things in the past, or things that have already happened. It's a line of time that has dates and different events that have happened. Native Americans to the new people that live in our country, today's people, and maybe even the future, right? We know that a timeline can give us an idea of how much time took place in between dates. An artifact is something left behind from the past, and there's a canoe and a drum or a bow and arrow. If you've ever found an old stone called an arrowhead, you know that you have found an artifact. An old vase, maybe from old times, from a long, long time ago. Native Americans are the very first people that lived in this land, or that lived on any land, or in the United States. Native Americans lived in the United States first. Transportation is the definition of transportation, is different ways to move people from place to place, or to move goods, products. We know that here in Alaska, transportation is very important. Airplanes and trains and automobiles and things like that. Super important. The president, he is the leader of the United States. That's what we call our leader, the president. You know that we've talked about the president. We had a whole study about that. Something that is found in nature is our natural resources. Something that we can find in nature that we use, such as water is a natural resource, crops and land, plants that grow in the land, trees, natural resources. Okay, negative consequences. This is something, they're bad things that happen as a result of an action a person takes. Has a negative consequence on something else, okay? A group may chop down a bunch of trees, and it would have a negative consequence on the animals or the wildlife that live in that area. Negative consequences. Pollution. Harmful things that are in the air, the land, or the water. Pollution. Positive consequences. Good things that happen as a result of an action that people or a group take. These are positive consequences. Things that happen that create positive effects on our earth. And lastly, our last vocabulary word is a point of view. The way a person thinks about something. The way that they view it, their thoughts and their opinions. It's called a point of view. Okay, what is history? History is the study of the past. People who study history or the past are called historians. Historians look for evidence or clues about the past that give them information about the way people lived back then. We can learn about history from books in stores or at the library. We can also look on the internet and in places where the historic events took place. Clues about the past can be found in pictures and old books. We can learn about the way people lived together and got along if we read and study about them. They may have been people just like us, trying to figure it all out in a great big new world. What is history? So you have a job to fill out a form like this. What is history? It is the study of the past. And what are historians? They're people that look for clues about the past and write about it. And where can you look to study the past? Think about that. That's for you to do. All right, so let's look at a place. New York City, okay? New York City in the state of New York. Okay, this is a picture of Times Square, okay? And Times Square, this is how it looked in the past, okay, a long time ago. And I'm going to show you a picture now of the present day of New York City. I want you to tell me if you can see some differences in these two pictures, okay? What makes these two pictures alike and what makes the two pictures different? Well, they're alike that there were many people. Okay, in this picture, there's a lot of people, many people. There are tall buildings, there are street lights, there's transportation. However, if you look again at the past, there aren't as many tall buildings. There's one versus all those tall buildings, and there are way less people. There's no electronics and billboards flashing. People are not driving cars or trucks. They have horses and wagons and bicycles. Okay? And you can come up with some other differences and similarities in these two pictures. You have an opportunity to fill out one of these forms like this. You get to cut out the pictures. Okay, you're going to cut out the past and the present, and then you're going to answer some questions. How are they alike? And how are they different? Okay? Just to kind of give you an idea. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is an artifact. Do you remember that word, artifact? Okay. Artifact is something from the past that we can study. All right, let's find out what that means. Okay? We can learn about the past in many different ways. We can study photos. We can talk to people just like we just did, right? We just looked at that photo of New York City so we could see the difference between the past and the present. We can read books about the past. We can talk to people or have interview people who lived long ago. Or we can look at artifacts. Artifacts are things from the past that have been left for us to study. For example, an old telephone from 1915 can be viewed, examined, and compared to the phones that we use today. Do y'all remember my telephone that I have in the classroom? That's right. That's an old telephone that used to be used back in those times. If you compared the phone from 1915 to an iPhone, you would find that there are many differences and that they were made very differently. Sometimes artifacts are buried or thrown away because they're looking for, and then people find them again by digging up the earth and study them. People that study human history by digging artifacts are called archaeologists. And if you want to stop the video and read that yourself, you may. Okay, good. All right, artifacts. So the next thing we're going to talk about is a timeline. And you all are going to have a chance to actually make your own timeline. It's going to be awesome. All right, so what is a timeline again? It is a diagram that helps us to see the order that things happened from the past to the present. So a timeline is important to know when events in the past have taken place. Simple way to show that is to make a timeline, okay? And I'm going to put this up on the screen so you can pause it and you can read this paragraph on your own. And then there's some questions down here. What is a timeline? How do we use them? And do all the events on a timeline have to go in a specific order? The answer is yes, they do. They absolutely have to go in order. They have to go in number order by date. So if they are not in the correct order, the timeline doesn't make any sense, right? So if you make a timeline when Disney movies came out and you put Toy Story 2 before Toy Story 1, that would be incorrect, and that would not be accurate history, would not be an accurate picture of history. So we want to make sure, and historians are very careful to make sure that timelines go in order so that people can study them. Now here's an example of this timeline of our community, of the town of Soldotna. Okay, and I'm going to hold that up high because you may be able to create one of those on your own. If you live in Kasilof or Kenai or Nikiski, you can make one for your community. Okay, so what I've done here is it starts with 1940. I've started long ago, the first date that I have, and that's when homesteading was really popular. People were just moving here. They had some people were given pieces of property to farm and to make a living, and a lot of people came to Alaska to do just that. So in 1940, that's when homestead started. The 1950s, oil was discovered on the peninsula and around Swanson River. So I drew a picture in here of the mountains and Swanson River, and yeah, actually that was the Sterling Highway. Sorry, I'm reading it from backwards. 1950s, the Sterling Highway was built. So I drew a picture of a highway. 1957 is when oil was discovered in Swanson River, 1957. Okay, so see how they're going in order, starting with the oldest, 1940, 50, 57, oil. 1967 was incorporated as a town, Soldotna. 1990 to 2020, which is now, we have hospitals and roads. We have a college here. We have traffic lights now. Did not have traffic lights long ago. And so that's my timeline of our community of Soldotna. Okay, so now you're going to have a chance to create your own timeline. And I'm going to show you mine I created. Okay, so we'll start here on my birth date. Okay, and so it starts with the date you were born. Okay, and I'm just going to slowly scroll this past the screen so you can have a look at the dates. Hopefully you can see those. Let's see. I should have laminated it so it would stick up straight. So, date, born, childhood, brothers and sisters, went to school, graduated, had a baby, moved to Georgia, got married, had a baby, moved to Alaska, and today. Okay, so you're going to do the same thing. You're going to create a timeline. I don't know if that's on the screen or not, but I will take a picture of this and I will send it to you guys with this message so that you can have an example of when to follow when you're creating yours. So you all have been talking about Native Americans, the first people that lived in America, in the United States, right? Before Christopher Columbus came, before all that. So I'm going to just talk about that for a minute, and then we're going to have fun with talking about past to present. Okay? Native Americans were the very first people that lived here in America. And I'm going to hold this up to the screen if you'd like to pause your video and you can read this about Native Americans. You guys have been doing a lot of really hard work in your social studies books, and I've been looking through your work and you're learning so much. Now, we did cover a lot of Native Americans when we learned about the Pilgrims over Thanksgiving time, so I'm really glad that you're getting to review that so that you remember all those important facts. Okay. The Native Americans were not exposed to illnesses until the Europeans came over, and that was part of the problem. When they came over, they brought a lot of illnesses. So that's just one of the things. So transportation. Let's talk about this in the next video. Changes from past to present. So I'm going to read a book, and we're going to talk about changes from past to present in the next video. So I hope to see you soon. Bye. Good luck filling out all your packets. It's going to be fun. Can't wait to see your timelines.